Hey everyone, it's Ro with Ro's Wigglers. I'm just down here in the basement and I've been resetting my European Nightcrawler breeder bins, which means I'm working to remove the adult European Nightcrawlers from their bin and separate them from the cocoons. And this process is starting to be so much easier to me that I'm starting to wonder, do I like European Nightcrawlers the best? I think maybe I do because I just need to show you how much easier this process is. I also am wondering, as I've been observing in here, I'm seeing way more cocoons in my European Nightcrawler bins than I am in my Red Wiggler bins. And I'm like, do they reproduce more? Do they make more cocoons in one 21-day cycle, which is how often I reset my bins? Um, they're definitely easier to see, and maybe that's part of it. I can just see the European Nightcrawler cocoons more easily. But I wanted to bring this to your attention because I see a lot of, people are really all about the red wigglers, and I do love the red wigglers. My favorite is what I call the dynamic duo of composting worms, which is combining red wigglers and European Nightcrawlers in the same bin. But in this situation, when navigating having breeder bins and trying to create, a certain species that's for sale because people want a certain species, I'm finding that separating these worms and doing this whole process is so much easier. So I wanted to just show you like what I'm doing here. I'm not sifting at all at this point for the Euros because they're so big and chunky that it's not even necessary. But whenever I come in here, okay, so this is going to be my new bedding. This is my new tray that I have set up that the adult European Nightcrawlers are going to go into and start their process all over again. I'm trying out this pre-compost situation. Jane from Rockin' Worms seems to swear by it, and so I have a bunch of compost that's most of the way finished, and then I did mix in some leaf mulch in here, so I want to see how much more quickly the worms go at this in comparison to the bedding that I've been setting up before. So this is the new bedding bin, and this is the bin that is finished up for this cycle, and I'm going to be removing the worms from the cocoons. I'm sorry if you hear any background noise. Someone is sanding on my back deck right now, so little this, little that for you. So as I get into this bin here, most of my worms should be more on this side because I've been trying to set it up for more of a horizontal migration. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move this over a little bit. I'm just making space so that I can start going through all the bedding and kind of just moving it this way and picking out the worms as I go. No sifting, no stressing the worms, because they're so big, I can just pluck them out. Boop. Whoop, there it goes. Here's a European Nightcrawler. Here's a European Nightcrawler. There it goes. And then I'm just moving this bedding over. I'm seeing tons of cocoons all in here. And I'm just plucking these worms and tossing them right over into the new bin. And it's just that simple. Like they're they're so big and easy to find. Look at this chunky baby. It's just living its best life. And so now it's going to go into its new home and pick up where it left off, doing its thing. Um, and I'm going to I'm just seeing so many cocoons in here too. So I'm moving the bedding over to the one side. And as I do, I'm picking out the worms and I'm just sticking them into their new bin. And this is it's really fast. I think it's faster than when I've sifted in the past. Um, I love trying all these new techniques and learning from other worm farmers what they're doing. This is something similar to I watched what is his name? Bobby. He's in down south. New Soil Castings. I'll try to tag him in the comments as well as Jane from Rockin' Worms. So he was doing this and he was saying, he doesn't like to sift his worms because it stresses them out and then kind of delays their time to start breeding again. So he'll just go through, he does this with his red wigglers too. I don't know about all that. He'll just go through and move the bedding to the side and pick the worms out and throw them over here. And so I'm trying this out and I am really liking it. So we get all these chunky babies over into their new home. Boop, boop, boop. So they can pick up living their best life. And I'm kind of just spacing them around, but also putting them in piles so they can start breeding again. A little bit of both. Yeah, it's just so easy and kind of fun. So if you're someone who, isn't necessarily a worm farmer trying to sell worms, but you do want to be able to quickly and easily separate your worms from your worm castings, and you don't have a sifter, and you don't want to wait a month or so for horizontal migration or for them to go up into the next bin if you're using like a stackable system. This could also, you might want to consider European night crawlers, because this is like all you'd have to do is go in, pick your worms out, and then you've got your worm castings for your garden. And it'd be that simple. So, sometime soon I'm going to be doing a workshop on different methods that I use to harvest my worm castings and to separate my worms. And, I think I'll probably demonstrate this as one of the methods, as well as the light method, horizontal migration, downward migration, the stackable bin system migration, sifting. I'll just show people all the different options and let them choose what's best for them in their context. So, but I don't know. I'm already halfway done with this bin. I'm just talking and pulling worms out. And I've already done two, and I think it's been not even a half hour. So I'll take it. And I am just amazed at the amount of cocoons that these guys are leaving for me. So I'll show you what I do with what's left in here, which is the bedding. A lot of it does have some really nice worm castings in it, but there's still a lot of bedding in here that's not really broken down, which I'm thinking will be the difference between this and what I'm doing based on what Jane from Rockin' Worms does. And maybe, this next round, more of what I'm doing is just basically having worm castings left over. Here I have a lot of bedding and some worm castings and a ton of cocoons. And so I think I have decided the easiest, fastest step for what I'll do with this bedding and these cocoons. If I were in a bigger need for more worm castings right now, I would sift the worm castings out and then put the bedding back. But I'll show you all what I'm gonna do in just as soon as I finish this bin, which shouldn't be too much longer. Oh, there's one. Boop. You gotta make the boop sound sometimes too, that way they know. Okay, I'm in my new home. I don't know. I'm a goof. More worms. And I put a bunch of old weeds and stuff. Oh yeah, look at this. They're all in these weeds. I had a feeding on one side, and they had just finally decided they were ready to start. The weeds were ready enough for them to start eating. So that'll be their little food source. Yeah, they're like all in this corner down here, doing their thing, which is what we want to see. And they're so easy to spot. It's just a totally different world than working with red wigglers, which again, I love red wigglers. I love all the worms, but they just do slightly different things. And so depending on your context, I'm just thinking for a lot of people who maybe are a little less familiar, I know red wigglers are more commonly known composting worm, but I don't know. I think the more and more I play with all these guys, the more I think I am actually much more into the European night crawlers overall. Again, the diversity of my bin is what makes me the happiest. But as far as individual species goes, I kind of want more people to get in on the European night crawler so that I can focus more on these guys, sell more of these guys, teach more about them, learn more about them, all the things. They're moving too. They're like, what is happening right now? Sorry, babe. Yes, I did call a worm babe just then. Apparently, I call all of my living creatures that I take care of babe. My chickens, my cat, the outside cats. Everybody's babe, which is hilarious because I do not call people babe. Almost done. And then I can show you. I didn't mention this, but as I'm seeing younger worms, like a few of the cocoons that I missed in the past, I'm just keeping them in this bin too, because all of these cocoons and these younger worms that aren't quite mature enough yet to start breeding are going to go into the nursery bin and start hatching and making a lot of worm castings for me while we wait for them to get big enough to join all the breeders. Here, little baby. So everybody has a nice job, and most of it is eating and living their best life. So I don't know. People think cats have it good. I think worms are pretty set too. And one day, I will try to have a camera person so that we can do better at, look at all these. Do better at zooming in on these beautiful moments like the one I just had where I found that huge worm ball. Yeah, they're all hanging out in this corner. There must have been something tasty they were all snacking on. Okay, come here, you. Okay. This little baby. Okay, so that's it. I now have my new European Nightcrawler breeder bin set up with their new bedding, the pre-composted material. I mixed in a little bit of food to get them started. They're already making their way in. You can see them squirming around. They're making their way down below the surface. So the last thing I'll do is I'll just cover these with their little piece of plastic, their worm blanket, as I call it. And then this is what's full of the mostly broken down bedding, but it's still got a little ways to go. Oh, you can go in there. With a bunch of cocoons. And so this is going to go in my bigger nursery bin, which is made out of a blue barrel cut in half, like Anne at Plant Obsessed. So this is going to go in my nursery bin. I'm going to keep it nice and watered, not saturated, but that way these cocoons can hatch, and then they will start doing their thing in there, breaking down the rest of this material. I'll also keep feeding them some fruit and veggie scraps and such, and they'll be making me a nice big batch of worm castings and eventually get big enough to go into a breeder bin. Anyway, that's European night crawlers. Let me know what you think. Hopefully this gave you something new to think about. And if you can like and subscribe, that is of course awesome. And leave some comments. I am curious to hear what your thoughts are. And beyond that, don't forget, healthy soil, healthy plants, happy worms. Until next time.